We're like, where did it go live? We're live. Welcome back. We are back for another one of your questions about work. This is one that Min just got asked. And Min and I, for those of you who are new, are startup investors in the future of work.
Yes, and this week we've been talking about just hiring and managing teams, and I think just also the tricky situations at work sometimes. And so this one felt I'm really keen to hear what you have to say, Roy, because if I were in an interview and if I'm asked explicitly why I quit my last job, and I know that it was because of potentially bad behavior with leadership or something that I disagreed, and that's why it didn't work out. How much am I supposed to disclose, if at all? And then I have a follow-up that I'll ask after.
Yeah, I think the reason you have to find a way to say it. And there's almost always a way to say it. And the reason I believe you have to find a way to say it is it's essential both for just being honest, but also so that the new employer knows who you are, and you'll learn a lot in their reaction to it about it. Now, there are considerations about that, about how you say it. One of them is you want to avoid being the person who just craps all over their last company, because then people think oh, this is the kind of person who just badmouths everybody they used to work with. So you have to find a way to be dignified in how you say it. The second thing is, a lot of it depends. I mean, look, I say this as a white man, so I've not been in a lot of situations others have had to be in. But, you finding a way to say it can often be about expressing what you want as opposed to what you experienced. You can say things in code, for example. You can say, I loved X, Y, and Z, but let's just say I really prefer to have a boss who delegates by giving me a goal without micromanaging. Okay, then you've sort of said you had a micromanaging boss, but you've said it in a somewhat dignified way. You can't be too indirect, because then it just looks like you're being cagey, but that's the art of timing and dosage and figuring out how to say it. Now, if you were harassed or there was a pervasive, awful culture of being unethical, then sometimes you can't be too specific about it. Sometimes you can be, by the way, and if you want to be, never having been harassed, if somebody said I was sexually harassed by my boss, I'd be like, thank you for telling me, at least if I were the interviewer. But if you can't say it directly, sometimes you can say something like, let's just say there were things going on at the company that I just didn't feel comfortable with ethically. And then you've expressed who you are without saying anything about the company.
Right. Okay, so here's another twist. What happens if in your exit from the company that you have some NDA or some non-disparage agreement that you...
Yeah, frequently happens. So I think that you can always talk about yourself. So you have to honor both the letter and the moral intent of an agreement that you enter into. So disparaging your former employer is usually something you can avoid. Now, many times when you leave, especially if you're paid severance, you are asked to sign something and often forced to sign something where you agree not to disparage employers. It's becoming a little less common as people realize how that forces people to shut up about bad behavior that they want to make sure they don't have to keep mum about. But you can say things, you can almost always say things like, I really prefer to be in a company environment where blank happens. And you can't be too cute where people named blank don't, sexually harass. You can't name it too directly, but expressing things you want is almost always something where somebody will get the hint.
Okay. To be honest, I don't have that much to add to this question. I was genuinely so curious to hear the answer. And so, tricky situations at work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say a general principle that applies to lots of tricky situations at work, like conflict with a coworker, is staying on your side of the street, meaning you can always talk about how something affects you and what you're feeling about something. And so being able to say when you have conflict, I'm feeling, really uncomfortable right now, or scared, or I was in a position where all too often I felt blank, is often the kind of thing you can do. And it doesn't require you to speculate about the other person. It doesn't require you to disparage the other company. It is really about what is inside of you, which ultimately only you can control. So that's what I got.
That's what this advice is for.
Yes. And not advice, because I'm not telling you what to do with your life. Advice is so often people saying, here's what you must do. And if it sounds that way, that's not how it's intended. This is really just our experiences and sharing our points of view on how we deal with these things. But ultimately, you got to live your life.
Great. And we will be back on Monday. We've got a couple special guests with us next week. And so stay tuned for more of that. And Roy and I will be back on Monday.
To be continued.